Hey guys, welcome back. It's been about 2 years since I've done a shop tour, so I figured since I've moved some stuff around here recently and upgraded a few things, I figured now would be a good time to go ahead and do another update. So starting off over here in this corner of the garage, it's a two-car garage that's 22 by 21. Starting in this corner is the dust collection. I've got a Grizzly G0548ZP dust collection. It's a 2 horsepower and it's roughly 1700 CFMs according to the manufacturer. It's got the filter that you can easily clean the baffles by moving this arm back and forth. Works pretty well, especially when you're using a drum sander and you're sucking in some fine dust. You want to keep this clean because that will reduce the CFM and not make it as efficient as it can be. So it's got a 6-inch hose that connects to a 6-inch trunk, and I'm using the 6-inch spiral pipe from Oneida. And the first drop that I have in the line is a 4-inch drop right here. This is a 4-inch Y that's going to go to my drum sander. I still need to mount another little arm on the wall for the hose to drop on top of the drum sander because I've got a 1632 Performax and the port is on top of the lid. So I've got to mount another arm to come over. But that's the first drop in the line here. And let me move you down to show you the center section right here where my planer is going to go. Moving right along, this drop here is probably about 8 feet away from where I was just previously standing. I've got a 4-inch blast gate down here. This is a 6-4, and this goes to my jointer planer combo. And then moving up here is a 6-inch Y. This is where the trunk actually goes up and over to the middle of the garage. And I've got a blast gate here, a 6-inch blast gate, so I can shut off this part of the dust collection trunk itself. So when I'm over here getting ready to use the planer joiner, I can close this off to my table saw because it's got 3 drops in the center of the garage. I can close this off and then leave this open so that way I only have 1 to 2 blast gates open at any given time. I guess I can briefly talk about the heating and cooling. And I have a Mitsubishi Mr. Slim mini split. I think it is 10,000 BTU, but it works perfectly good for the size of garage that I have. 22 by 21 like I was mentioning. Doesn't take too long to heat it up, maybe an hour or so, because it doesn't get any cooler in here than about 45, and that's on really cold days. But it typically stays around 55 degrees, so this does a pretty good job of keeping it warm. And in the summertime, it has no problems at all getting it cool enough in here. And then following the trunk over on the ceiling, this goes over to the center of my garage and it drops down right here at the table saw. So in the center of the garage, I have the 6-inch pipe drop right here, and this is a 3-port, I guess, splitter that came with my dust collector itself to allow you to connect up to 3 4-inch hoses. So on that, I have 1 capped, and then the other 2, one of the ports goes to the over the arm table saw dust collector, and the other hose goes all the way to the bottom to the cabinet dust collector port on the bottom. So as of right now, that's as far as I go with the dust collection up on the ceiling. I just stop in the center. And then finally, this is the other end of the main trunk here on the floor, and this is a Y splitter. I got a 6-inch to 4-inch to 2.5-inch because my bandsaw only has a 2.5-inch port. And then on the other side of this is a 4-inch pipe, and that's going to go to my router table. And so now I'm going to clean this stuff up and move all the tools back into their places, and then I'll resume the tour. It's been about 3 hours now. I've got all the tools back into place so I can give you a proper tour. I'm back over here by the dust collector, and this is my Performax 1632 drum sander. I got it connected again with this 4-inch hose that I've got an arm sticking out on the wall here that I've got connected to hold the dust collection hose, because the way this port is set up, it's kind of a pain in the butt to really hold the hose into place. It's either going to be in the way of the workpiece or in the way of the controls over here. But this is my drum sander. I don't use it a whole lot, but when I do use it, I'm glad that I have it. I've got some issues with it where it still burns just a little bit, so I've got to figure out if it's an alignment issue with the table or the head. But other than that, it's a great machine, and it's a great tool to have in your shop for things like end-grain cutting boards and veneering and stuff like that, and just some real fine sanding tasks. So about 6 or 7 feet away from my drum sander, I'm now standing here next to my 12-inch joiner planer combo. This is the jet version. It has the 3 cutter blades. It's the straight knives version. Plan on upgrading to the helical cutting head probably in the next year or so. It's a great machine. It was a pain in the butt to get aligned when the tables weren't coplanar, so that probably took half a day to get both the tables for the joiner and the planer aligned. But now that everything is coplane and good to go, it's a great machine. With this being a combination machine, it saves floor space, but you do lose time in that when you want to switch it over to a planer, you do have some setup time. But it's not that big of an issue, again, because it saves space and I don't have to have 2 separate machines. Another thing that I don't really enjoy about this machine is the Euro style guard here over the head, the cutter head. I'm used to the traditional pork chop style, so a lot of times I use this the same way that I would use the pork chop style. I would just move the cutter head or the guard out of the way and then just use my paddles to push it through. I just can't get used to using this style of a guard. Even though I've had this machine for probably 2 years, it's just something that I can't get used to. But it's a great machine. It's one that I'm glad that I have with the added capacity. And this is the one note over here on the dust collection. This is the main trunk that I have going over to the table saw in the center of the room. So I can keep open roughly 2 blast gates and still have adequate, I guess, suction at the hose. So when I come over here and use this, I'll just shut this off and it'll cut off the 2 drops in the center. And then I have 2 gates open here all the time, with this joiner planer being one and my bandsaw being the second one. So all I got to do is just open and close this one blast gate instead of having to open and close each individual blast gate. So that's something, a new feature that I've just implemented in the last week that's saved some time and it's really handy. So moving on down the line, let me show you the bandsaw. Actually, before I get to the bandsaw, I just wanted to briefly show you, this is my tool cabinet that I built following the guy's wood shop. He did a SimpleCove guild build, building a nice cabinet. This is my version of it. I didn't make mine quite as fancy as his. I didn't add the nice top. But this is my cabinet, tool cabinet that I have hanging on the wall over here with some hand planes and stuff in. I've got a number 3. I've got a low angle jack plane, a Stanley shoulder plane, and then I've got the Lie-Nielsen block plane, and the rabbiting block plane from Lie-Nielsen. And I've got a number 4 smoother, and then just a couple of little small router planes. This is a small router plane, and up here is the large router plane. Let's see. And of course I got a scraper plane that I don't use often, but it's something that I plan on using more in the future. But this, as you can see, the hand tool cabinet is pretty much full, and I'm going to have to look at expanding that here probably in the next year or so, because I have no room for any more hand tools to fit in the cabinet. So now that the ones that I have sticking in one of the drawers of my workbench. But this is my hand tool cabinet. And then moving over up top, before I get to the bandsaw, these are my clamp storage. I have the jet parallel clamps. I picked those up when they were, I think it was on Black Friday when they were 50% off. I got a couple of them. I guess I got a total of 8. Yeah, 8 of them. They're the 24-inch clamps. And then the other ones over here, the Bessies, are the ones that I bought first. When I very first started woodworking, I picked the Bessies up, and it's hard to say which one I like best. I keep going back and forth. I really like the Bessies, so I think if you get either one of the 2 brands, you're not gonna pick a bad clamp. But that's my storage for those. As you can see, I don't have any more room for any additional parallel clamps, but I think I should be covered on that for a little while. And then in the corner, I just got some miscellaneous F-style clamps and a couple of the smaller unit clamps from Bessie. I think I have 4 of these. These are the 24-inch clamps. So this is the Porter Cable bandsaw. I'm not sure of the model number. Well, it is the PCB330BS. I got this at Lowe's probably 4 years ago. And I've since added a 6-inch riser block on it to give me 12 inches in resaw capacity. And I did add the Craig fence to it. It's a great bandsaw. There are some limitations that I've run into as far as accuracy, being able to cut some fine veneer and resawing and stuff. It just takes, no matter how well I have the table set up and the blade aligned and all that stuff, I just can't, there's some things that I just can't get out of it as far as accuracy goes when it comes to resawing. But if you don't do a whole lot of resawing and you just want to cut some curves or some smaller pieces and stuff, this bandsaw is great for that. So moving over to the router table, this is a router table that I've had since probably I started woodworking. I picked this up at my local Woodcraft. They had this as a demo unit. It's a great table. It's just one of the type of tables that you would need for like an Incra fence. This is when, I guess it's called Pinnacle, when this brand, old woodworking brand called Pinnacle, made their knockoff version of the Incra fence. I don't like it that well. I just don't like this style of table because I think it takes up too much room. So what I'm probably going to be doing in the future is switching over and putting a router in the wing of my table saw. But for now, I've just got a Bosch, I think it's a 2¼ horsepower router in the table. I don't have one of the big Porter cables or anything like that. And I do all of the adjustments up top, just using the hole that this router has the capabilities of doing above the table adjustments, the Bosch does. So I just take the little tool they have and I adjust the height up on top of the table. And it's your typical router table. I've got it boxed in down here below with it connected to my dust collection, and it does a pretty good job. Of course, I don't have any above the table dust collection, but for the most part, it does a pretty good job of collecting it. I normally keep a trash can on the left side of the table. When I'm done, I just sweep it off into the trash can. But it's a pretty good router table setup. It's done everything that I needed, and it's got plenty of room. So moving on the other side of the garage, this is my workbench here in the center. I'll cover the center island here pretty soon. But moving over on this side, I've got my spindle sander, disc sander, and a Wood River hollow chisel mortiser all on this one table that shares the same space with my Hitachi 12-inch sliding compound miter saw. That is the C12 RSH miter saw. And I have had some alignment issues with that. It's come out of square pretty easily, so I've had to adjust that a couple of times. But now that I have that dialed in, it's a pretty good miter saw. I've had no complaints other than some alignment issues. I mean, the dust collection isn't great, but I don't know what miter saw has great dust collection. I eventually would like to build some dust shroud around it or get some sort of aftermarket, I guess, fast cap cells, a thing that you put around your miter saw. But I just need to determine where I'm going to set my miter saw because I don't know if I'm going to leave it in this area. So what I'll probably do is figure that out and then figure out what kind of dust collection I need to put on it. But right now I have my shop vac connected, the 2.5-inch hose connected to the back of it, and it catches probably 20% to 30% of the dust when I'm making cuts. But I just got it on this mobile cart so that when I need to cut long boards, I can just pull it out in the middle of my garage, make the cuts and push it back. It works out pretty well. Just got mainly down here on the bottom of the cart, I've just got some miscellaneous junk that I need to go through and get rid of. The cabinets behind them, the first thing I did when I started woodworking was I built a wall full of cabinets. And I guess looking back at it, I don't know if I would have done anything different. I mean, because I don't have, with this row of cabinets, I don't have a whole lot of expansion room on the walls. I'm pretty much tied down to what I have access to on the floor below the cabinets. But I guess they store everything that I need. If I were to do it over, I would probably do something like Jay Bates where he has storage above his garage door. I would probably put some shelves up there, and then I really wouldn't need these row of cabinets, and that would open it up for some other type of storage solutions or tool cabinets and stuff like that. And I still may do that in the future. So, in looking at these cabinets, this one has a first aid kit, which luckily the only thing I needed to use were Band-Aids, some Dremel tools, and then I've got some, when I was working on the Highboy, which I need to get back on, I got the feet in here for the Highboy, and just some miscellaneous crap that again has accumulated because these are these are cabinets, and it's easy to justify just throwing stuff in there to get it out of the way. And the same thing over here, I just got more crap. I got some chemicals at the top, and then just some paint and miscellaneous stuff over here that, again, that I could probably just get rid of. But I've just decided it's easier to hide them by closing the doors than it is to deal with the problem. This corner is open a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm going to put anything over there, but I did think about putting some sort of vertical cabinet, some standing cabinet over there to get rid of most of this stuff to free up some wall space, but I haven't made that move just yet. So let me grab the camera and pull you over here to the lathe. So next up is my lathe station. It is roughly, I guess, a couple feet from my door to go into the house and probably 15 feet away from the garage door. This is a Jet 1221 VS. It's the variable speed lathe. I've got the extension on it to be able to do some long spindle turning. And that's primarily why I bought the lathe to begin with, was for some spindle turning for some legs. As you can see, this is one of the legs that I turned on for the high bore that I'm going to eventually get back to working on. But that's why I primarily bought it, was for spindle turning. But in 2017, I'm going to be getting into some bowl turning just a little bit. This has the capabilities to do, I think, up to 12-inch bowls maybe. Not real big bowls, but it'd probably be all that I would want to do for now. It's a great lathe. It's really stable. It does a great job. It's got plenty of power, and it's everything that I need in a lathe right now. But I've got it setting on a couple of base cabinets that I picked up from Home Depot. Just glued them or screwed them together to make one big base, leveled it out, and then I built a cherry top to put on top of it. But there's a couple things wrong with having a base like this, in my opinion, for my setup. And the first being that it makes my lathe too high off the ground. So when I'm turning, my hands are just up a little too high, in my opinion. I would like to have something probably 6 inches lower. I think these are 34 inches off of the ground plus the lid. So you're looking at probably 34 3/4 before it even starts to get to the bottom of the lathe. So you're well within 40 inches in the ground, off the ground from when you're starting to turn, and it's just a little bit too high. But again, I set this up before even using a lathe, so I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. The second issue with this is that the lathe is, or I'm sorry, the workbench is too deep. I can't really utilize the space behind it. And the only thing that ends up happening is anytime that I turn, all of the chips go to the back, and it's just a mess. So if I do have stuff sitting back there, it blows chips all over it, and it's pretty rough to have to keep clean all the time. So probably what I'm going to do in the next year or so is just put this on a mobile base that I can pull out to the middle of the garage, do some turning, clean it up and push it back, and that'll also save a little bit of space here on this side of the garage. But I mean, it works out okay the way it is now. I would do it different if I were to start over now, and I probably will end up changing it. This spot right here is where I have a Rikon grinder that I stick up on this area right here when I do turn, because I have some gouges and some scrapers that I use that I need to sharpen. So that's so I'll stick it up here for when I do turn. So let me go ahead and show you what I keep in the cabinets above the lathe. So in this cabinet above the lathe is the first cabinet. I've got all of my sanding supplies. I'm going to be switching that up. I just bought a Festool sander, so that means that unfortunately I can't use the sanding discs that I have anymore. So I'll be putting those to the side and using them for hand sanding and stuff in the future. So I'm going to be cleaning a lot of this crap out and organizing it just a little bit better. This is the sanding station that I built on an early SimpleCove video, so I'll link to that below and you can check that out. But again, I just got some miscellaneous crap up here and here at the very top that I need to go through and clean up. So this is my finishing cabinet, and it's got a bunch of stuff. As you can see, I'm probably to the max on what I can store in here, and I've got all kinds of crap in the back that I need to get rid of that I've used throughout the years that's probably no good anymore. But one thing when you do finishing and you experiment on different finishes, you sure do gather a lot of equipment and a lot of supplies. So this is my finishing cabinet right here. And on this side is my glue cabinet. I've got like pumice stone, brown glue, or hide glue, old brown hide glue rather. and Type Bond hide glue, my veneer glue, Super 77 original Type Bond, and I got some CA glue, my jigsaw that I keep up in here, and just some random stuff, and of course all of my sharpening supplies that I was just talking about. I'm going to be building a dedicated sharpening station because if I have my sharpening supplies out, I'm going to use it more. The fact that I haven't put away, I find myself finding excuses to not sharpen. So if I had those out on a sharpening station, I would probably use them more because it's a more convenient setup. Now I've got to go pull the stuff out. So I'm up here at the front of the garage, and this is where I have my lumber. I'm about 2 or 3 feet away from where I was just standing next to the lathe. Over here I got a Craftsman toolbox with some miscellaneous tools in it. And this is a vertical lumber rack. I've opted to go with the vertical lumber rack because I can fit more lumber in here in just a small area than if I were to go with the horizontal. And since the first thing I did when I started woodworking was build cabinets, I don't have a lot of wall space. So I had to use the vertical lumber rack. But I mean, I think I can put 200 to 300 board feet in this area right here. And it's really easy to pick through the lumber and see which board I need. Instead of having I guess a horizontal lumber rack, it's kind of tough to pick through the lumber. I personally just find it better to have a vertical lumber rack. Right now I've got it fully stocked because I'm getting ready to start a blanket chest out of some mahogany that I have. I have some 5/4 mahogany for that blanket chest. It's going to be a guild build, so if you're interested in that, go check out the site at simplecoveguild.com and sign up for the newsletter, and I'll let you know when that's out. But I have some poplar, some elm, and just all kinds of stuff, some spalted maple, and I still got a bunch of 5/4 walnut left over for my high boy that I need to get back on. And then moving over here is where I keep my drill press. This is just a Porter cable. It is a PCB 660DP. I also picked this up at Lowe's. Again, it's got plenty of power, drill straight, and there's not much more that you can ask for in a drill press. I didn't need anything elaborate. I just needed it to drill, have plenty of power, and drill accurately, which this covers. So it's a nice drill press, and I'm glad that I have it. Moving on over here in this area to the left of the drill press, it's just a bunch of plywood and scrap that I need to do something with, but right now it's just going to remain open until for some reason find a tool to plug that hole with. So let me spin you around and show you the center section of the garage. So sitting in the center of the shop is my Craftsman 22124 hybrid table saw. It's got a 1 3/4 horse motor. It's got a Biesmeyer fence. And for the dust collection, over the blade dust collection, I've got a Penn State Industries setup here. It works fairly well. It's got a 4-inch pipe and it's reduced down to 2.5 over the blade. If you're doing a cut where the blade is going through the wood and it has wood on both sides of the blade, it does a pretty good job of collecting that dust. But if you're just shaving a board or cleaning a board up and the blade's not supported on both sides with wood, it just spits all that back out. It doesn't do a very good job on that. But I'm not sure which table saw collects that dust 100% over the blade. It does have a 4-inch port down at the bottom, but the inside of the cabinet dust collection is really poor on this saw. It just continues to build up until you're forced to clean it out manually because it'll build up next to the motor and very easily just continue to build up. But eventually, sooner or later, I would like to upgrade to a different table saw, but I paid $400 for this saw about 4 years ago and it's brand new. So it's a great saw and it does everything that I need. So moving on to the workbench, this is I think it's a Fine Woodworking magazine inspired workbench, I think. But it is made out of poplar. It's got a 3-inch thick top and the legs are 4x4 posts, all again made out of poplar. I have 4 drawers on it, so that means that my dog holes aren't all the way through. So that's one downside of the workbench. If I were to do it over, I'm probably going to be removing this top drawer and drilling the dog holes through just so I can use some stuff like holdfasts and just all the dust gets stuck inside of the holes and it's just a pain in the butt to clean out. But in my drawers I keep some hand tools like my chisels and just miscellaneous stuff like some saws and stuff like that. Anything that I pretty much couldn't fit in my hand tool cabinet I keep in the drawers over here. Down here I keep my moccasin vise that I just finished over on the Guild. And on the sides I have my saws. And here's a better shot of the back of the workbench. I have access on 3 sides of the bench. And this is my vise. I've got it lined with leather, and it works out pretty well. If I were to do it over again, I would probably choose a different configuration, but this one vise seems to cover everything that I need. Again, my biggest complaint about the workbench is the dog holes. I need to have a way to drill these through, so I'm probably gonna, like I was saying, remove that one drawer. So that's pretty much my shop tour in a nutshell. It's not a whole lot has changed since my 2015 layout. So let me go ahead and do a quick pan around the garage, starting from up in the front where I enter the garage, just to give you an idea of the size and where everything is located. And this is the door where I enter the garage. And again, to the left immediately is the lathe. And then back there in the back is the miter saw that I was showing. And then you got the center island where the table saw and my workbench is. And then up top, you got the dust collection coming over and down. And there's my mini split for heat and AC. It's a 10,000 BTU unit. It's a Mitsubishi mini split. It works really well. And then on that side over there is the dust collection. So there's my drum sander and the joiner planer combo. And then again in the back, my bandsaw. And then of course all the way over here to the right is my lumber rack. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the shop tour. There's been quite a bit of change going on, I guess, as far as moving tools around, because I have made myself started parking outside. I know that it's a woodworking sin to park your vehicle in the garage. So utilizing the full garage has given me a whole lot more options as far as where I have stuff and what I can now also add to my shop. So I've got one question for you. I like to crowdsource some of your guys' ideas and answers and solutions like this, but what is one thing that you would change or improve on the way that my shop is set up right now? Do you see something that sticks out to you that I've forgotten or, of course, haven't seen myself? Other than the crap and the overcrowded cabinets, because I know about that. I need to clean that up. But let me know below what you would change or improve. I'm interested in seeing you guys' thoughts. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the thumbs up button if you liked it. That always helps. So I think that's it, and I'll see you guys in the next build video.